to begin.
Hey, what is up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the podcast. As a reminder, please give us a follow on Spotify, give us a follow on Apple Podcast, share, like, or repost anything on Instagram. It's something that is free, it costs nothing to do, and it helps the podcast a whole lot. So if you find it within you to go ahead and press that button, even when you're hesitating to press that heart button in the corner, just go ahead and do it. It's easy, and it's going to make you feel really good, I promise. Today's episode is with Sam and Dawn. They are the hosts of the family podcast Straight Outta London. This conversation was very interesting because we were able to get different perspectives and different opinions on things. And in this particular episode, we delve into the idea of purpose. And what that means. Does everybody in this world have purpose? Is purpose something that we give meaning to ourselves as individuals? Like, what is it, right? To make it even more interesting, we started talking about how artificial intelligence, if or when it happens, how will we react as a species, right? Like, how will we react when another intelligence wants to be at our equal level? Who knows? I hope it makes you guys interested enough to kind of ask these questions. And at the end of the day, are you going to be team human or team robot? I mean, perspectives change, narratives change, people change. Until then, just have fun with it. Allow yourself to have fun. Quick heads up, though. I do want to make sure that you're aware that I'll say between the beginning of the conversation to 20 minutes max, gotta remember this conversation is being recorded from LA across the magic of technology all the way to London. So, of course, we're going to have some signal issues. I promise that the audio gets a lot better. But I hope you guys enjoy this conversation. Don't forget to follow the family podcast on Instagram. Check out their website and go show some love. With that being said, today's music is brought to you by Mexico City Heartbreak with their song Daylight. Their song and their video are streaming on all platforms now, so go check it out. Show your support, show your love, go do your thing. I hope you guys enjoy this conversation. See you soon.
I step into the daylight for the first time in a while. It's been a year full of doubts and fears, but I think I'm ready to get out of here. Into the light, the daylight. I'll meet you there, the other side.
Hey, what is up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Social Primate Podcast. Today, my very special guest is Sammy and Don, all the way from London. What's up, guys? Thank you for coming out.
Hey, how you doing?
You're right, man. That's good.
Thank you guys for making this time. It's always really fun to get people in different time zones because it's like you're playing a race against time or something like.
Yeah.
But for the people who have never heard of your podcast, give us a little bit of background about what your show's about.
No problem. So the family podcast is basically obviously about two brothers. Myself and Sammy were biological brothers. And we basically delve into topics, around social issues. We look at things like what's current in the media. We look at things like relationships with different people. Mainly, we kind of stick to the relationships topics, given relationship advice, and just looking at how humans interact, with each other on a more of a social level, and the discussions, that people have in terms of like anything really, from discussions around cosmetic surgery to, I don't know, stuff that goes on in media. I'm not sure if you heard about the MP, Matt Hancock, in terms of him being dismissed regarding his role because he had an affair with one of his associates. So we kind of touch and delve. We touch and delve on a number of subjects. But it's just generally, it kind of starts as two brothers just having a catch up, to be honest. And displaying our different views on different topics.
No, that's what I love. That's what really caught my interest in the beginning, because you start getting this random knowledge. That's what you can only do, just really keep pushing yourself to learn more and more.
No, definitely. And I think with us, it's kind of like me and Sammy are very, very different. in terms of our approaches to life, in terms of everything that we do. But we grew up in exactly the same household, same mum, same dad. So it's interesting to hear how our perspective has developed over time through our different journeys, so to speak. So, yeah.
What about you, Sammy? I know we kind of lost you there for a second.
I think it's a documentation of our life in London. And then the topics that have come about living life. So we talk about relationships, and we talk about things that are interesting to us. And every so often we bring on guests. Like most of them started off being friends and the people that we know, to talk about their experiences through life as well, because we kind of believe that, in community. And that's one of the things that drew me to the podcast in drum in the first place. There was a community that you don't really see in a lot of other industries or pursuits. And so we like that. Our whole thing is about being two brothers and being a family. So it's about telling everybody's story, little bits about London life and stuff like that as well. So you get a bit of everything with us.
Have you guys, like, within each other always gotten along, or is that something that kind of like, what was your relationship growing up?
No, so I think in our teenage years, there was definitely a lot of rivalry between me and Don. I thought that, he was, I don't know, I just thought that he wasn't really the person he portrayed himself to be, and he thought that I was somebody who had to demean him in order for my ego to be lifted up, and we clashed a lot in it. But I think when we made our respective trips to university and kind of learned to be ourselves, not, oh yeah, you're Don's brother, oh yeah, you're Sam's brother. We created our own kind of identities, and then realizing that, for this whole time, I haven't spent time with my brother. When it comes back, it's a little more special. You put all of that childish stuff aside, and then you just grow. And since then, we've just grown and got closer and closer.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it sounds like my brothers are a little young right now. They're still like in their really early 20s. So I don't know how old you guys are, but I'm in my 30s. So it's kind of hard to connect with them. So that's why I asked them, like, I wonder what, like right now, I can't think of like me approaching my brother and be like, hey, let's start a podcast. It's like, that's not in the books at all,
Yeah. So I think that with me and Don, there's not that much difference. There's 3 years between me and Don. So he's 30, I'm 33. But we also have a younger brother who's 20. And so when we made the pitch to do the podcast, we were trying to bring him in because a lot of people just think it's just us two in our family, but it's not. He's part of it as well. But he was like what you say, he's not interested in doing a podcast. So it's great for me and Don because we do have that connection. But we've also got my little brother Simon, who keeps us in the loop with things that are, trending and stuff like that. So
you get both the best of both worlds. You're still within that. Now, so I think you guys started this. I think I saw like the earliest episode was like in 2019, right? Were you guys going before then?
No. So 2019, 2019 is generally when we started. But like some things, you have to have a feeler. I'd say 2020 is really when we started to put our foot on the pedal and say this is something that we actually want to do.
Yeah, I think that's kind of similar to myself because I started in like 2018, but like you said, you got a feel for it, and I didn't touch it for a while until you kind of get comfortable and start trying to figure out what it is that you're really trying to create. Don, what about you, man? Like, how did you? What sold you on the idea of joining the podcast? Of saying, you know what, I'm going to do this.
So, as I said, me and Sammy, I don't know, we've always been kind of at odds, but one of the things that we both hold dear to us is our family. We've always said that we wanted to change the lives of our family kind of for the better. And it doesn't matter if I go off on my separate path or he goes off on his separate path or my younger brother goes off on his separate path. Our parents instilled in us this unique ability to understand that we are a family. And in terms of that, it's important to us, to live a better life and, have a better life for our family. So when he told me about the podcast, we had previously done music together. Like we used to rap together in a music group called The Family.
Nice.
And as it went, it was kind of like he just got a bit busy. You know, his life developed and was ongoing. So it didn't make sense for him to continue to do music in the fashion that he was doing it before. So he came up with the idea of a podcast. And at first, I wasn't really sold on it because Sam has chopped and changed in a few things. Just like people's interest, isn't it? Like as you're going through life, you're interested in one thing and then you move on to another thing as time develops. And I was like, is this going to be a thing where he kind of has a phase? But we've always spoken for ages and ages and ages. Like we had like 2-hour conversations, 3-hour conversations over the phone. My family are big talkers, maybe apart from my dad, he doesn't talk as much, but I spend like 2 hours, 3 hours on the phone to my mom. I spend like 2 hours, 3 hours on the phone to Sammy. I think our max conversations are like going to like 6 hours or something like that. So imagine just walking around with the headset on for like 6 hours, And so we were like, well, why don't we just put this out into the world? Like we talk so much about things. And we've always had this like natural aura as well, where other people kind of gravitate to our conversation. So there's been a few times we've been on the train and just been like talking about something and like you'll see the person like looking over to you and like smiling and giggling at stuff that you're talking about. And like for me, I always think to myself, you can actually join the conversation. I'm not going to think you're a weirdo. Like if you've heard something that you're interested in, they never do, but you can tell that they're listening from the outside. It gave us a good platform to think, okay, well, maybe a podcast can work. So yeah. And
then on top of that, once you start looking for people in specific fields that know what they're really kind of like, we're talking about, not even that in that sense either, but like they're willing to open up and really have a conversation. Like that's rare nowadays. You know, not a lot of people are willing to spend hours on the phone, on the phone talking to somebody, you know?
Yeah, no, definitely.
You notice that people don't really understand how spectacular their lives have been up to the point that they're living. Until sometimes you sit them in front of a microphone and they start relaying important events from their life. And then you see them, because we do quite a few podcasts face to face. So you see it unraveling and you see them like, bro, I actually went through this, I went through that, I went through this, and I'm here now and I've got these set of skills. And I think that's one of the amazing things about the podcasting art, allowing somebody to unravel and see the glory of the life that they've been living.
But like you said, you start reflecting, and that's the key word, like the reflection part. Like whether you're doing it verbally, openly to somebody or just within yourself, like it's that reflection that makes you think like, holy shit, I have done things in my life that have made me who I am, whether you think you're in the best position or not.
I mean, definitely for me, I didn't realize that I did so much stuff just generally until I started talking about it. And people were like, oh, you did that? And I was like, oh, yeah, I did do that. It's like, oh, you do that as well? And then you realize that actually there's a lot of hobbies that people don't do. There's a lot of people who do their 9 to 5 and then come back home and rest. You know, that's what they do. Yeah. That's what their life entails. Whereas I think that's odd. You know, I remember the first time that I said to people that I absolutely hate, I despise sleep. I think it's the biggest waste of time ever. And, you know, everyone started looking at me like, sleep? Nah, like that stuff is amazing. I'm like, well, what do? You do absolutely nothing. You just need it for your body to recuperate. But actually, if you're talking about productivity, it is the single most like you're not productive during that time. It's a waste of time. Apart from recuperating and all the stuff that it does for your body. But like, you know, if we're talking about getting things done, it's definitely not the most efficient thing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I get some people who, you know, like, you know, when you sleep and then you wake up and you feel groggy and you want to go back to sleep. And I'm like, yeah, because you're just sleeping all the time, you know, like, so yeah. I'm not a big fan of sleep. Some other people would advocate for it, but not me.
It's cool that you guys were both kind of like, again, in your own, I like how you mentioned earlier, like, you know, you guys were brought up in the same household, but at the end of the day, you know, everybody makes their own identity in whatever ways that they, as they pass through life. But with you guys in this example, like that part of that path has, you know, come together again to create this podcast. Even if it's not the main path, it's still a path that you guys are both willing to take and create, you know, continue creating. Has it been hard trying to, I know, you know, when you're in a band, you're like, I can't do it with this man. I can't do it with this lady. Like, is there friction between you guys depending on how you guys want to push content or want to focus on?
Not as much as you think, because because he's my brother, you just say it how it is. So, you know, sometimes when you're with a close friend, you hesitate about how to say certain things. Whereas if it's your brother, you just say it. It's open. There's no filter. You just say what you're supposed to say. And because of that, a lot of the issues get resolved really quickly. Not to say that there weren't any issues.
And I think over on the other side as well, it's kind of like, just as much as we say it how it is to each other because we're brothers, we also make compromises that we wouldn't necessarily make for other people. So, for example, you could be in a band and people are starting to get on your nerves, and you've got no allegiance. You know, like what's the end goal? Your own success and happiness. When me and Sammy think about the bigger picture, we think about our family. So it's not really an option. It's like, well, would we like to put dad in a Mercedes Benz? Well, obviously, you know, so we got to put our differences aside, you know, for a second and figure out how we're going to do, how are we going to put dad in a Mercedes Benz? Do you know what I'm saying? So we have different priorities. And sometimes that means one person may have to take more of a sacrifice or less of a sacrifice. And it doesn't really matter. The end goal is the end goal. If the end goal is, I mean, we've always had this, as I said, I don't know where it came from, but I think it's partly because they poured so much into us. So we want to pour so much back into our family, you know, whether that's my younger brother, my mum or my dad, my grandma, aunties, cousins, you know, it's just like a long list of people that we would like to bless, like, as we go on through life. And so we're just always actively kind of thinking about that and thinking, okay, well, if this is the route, then how much compromise do I have to make? You know, and then it's like, it's not really, are you winning? It's more like an obligation. So like in our culture, you wouldn't really put your mum in a care home or your dad in a care home. You know, you would look after them to end it. It's just your obligation, it's your duty. And similarly, I see like the journey to success in that way. You know, it's an obligation. I don't have a choice. You know, I've got all these amazing gifts, you know, that God kind of blessed me with. Well, one of them has to work and get my family, you know, a better situation. And that's just the way we've always been united on that front. So even when we can't agree about something, it's like, all right, so what are we going to do then? Because we're not moving anywhere, but our family needs to eat. Mum needs this, dad needs that, little bro needs this. And we just keep it moving.
No, that's good, man. It really sounds like it's coming from a really pure place, you know? And like, and that dynamic and that love, it radiates from the show or the content that you guys produce. So, you know, big props to that. Because a lot of people, you know, sometimes, unfortunately, there's a lot of fake things out there. Every now and then you do find something that's raw and like you can really connect to it on a human level, you know, instead of just like this superficial level of just things, you know, and wants. But, you know, props to you guys for that, for really finding a way to make that work.
Oh, thank you.
Now, one thing as we start moving forward with the conversation, one thing I did want to bring up, the idea of like purpose, right? Like, I kind of want to just touch base and play around with it, because this may not be the best example, but just a few days ago, I went to a road trip. California has like this highway that goes straight up to the coast. And there's this particular spot where you pull over and there's elephant seals, and they're just laying there. I'm not a scientist. I don't know anything about elephant seals, but I just saw them laying on the beach, chunky, lardy, like just animals just flopping around, throwing sand on themselves and just really not doing much. And I started thinking, I was like, you know what? Like, what's the purpose of these guys? Like do they serve a purpose to their ecosystem? What is their ultimate purpose in a sense as a sentient being? So I was like thinking like, oh shit, now that if we reflect that onto ourselves, does every human in this planet at this moment have a purpose, or is it just something that we assume that we have and, you know, we try to find it? So I want to get your perspectives on that, like your opinions on what you guys think that means.
You know, I think I've made a couple of posts about purpose, and I think that it's shrouded in the mystical, right? You go up to some mountain, you look out, and you see, oh my gosh, I've discovered my purpose in life. And I generally don't think that's how it works. I think that you can just pick something. You can pick something out of the air and be like, this is what I'm going to dedicate the rest of my life to. And you can move forward with discipline and being resolute. And some people find that when they're 5 years old, they pick and then they go with that. And so it seems a lot like purpose because they've been resolute from a very, very young age. And some people find it when they're 37, some when they're 50. But I don't necessarily think it's this mystical thing that you're born with. I think you're born with a set of skills, but those set of skills can take you anywhere depending on what you decide to polish and the route that you choose to take through your free will. So for me, I think that purpose is one of those things, and that would explain to me why you see some people when it seems like they have purpose, and then you talk to other people who are part of the same species, the same town, and they don't seem to be doing anything. They just haven't picked what their skills allow them to do, and so they're just wondering.
I don't know, man. Don, can you go above that? Can you do better?
I mean, to me, I believe that, everything does have a purpose. And this is funny because this is where like me and Sammy, like you'll see like the divide straight away. So, I'm very religious, it was instilled in me from young. I don't really believe that I even had really a choice about it. I just believe that my experiences taught me that everyone has a purpose. And so I'll give you, a few things that kind of developed into my purpose. I've always been, for all intents and purposes, a people person. I don't know where it came from. In fact, I don't even like people as much as the purpose drives me to speak to people, which is an utter contradiction. Because if you leave me to it, like if you put me in a room of new people, the likelihood that I'm going to interact with people is very, very small. But however, I've always been dragged into these massive circles. I remember in university, some guy just burst into my room and was like, yo, hey, my name's Will. I didn't ask to meet him. Me and him are like the closest now ever before. That same night, the night after, I got insanely drunk. I was so drunk, I couldn't even stand up. But for some reason, everybody gravitated towards me the next day. I don't know what I said. I don't know what I did. I had no inhibitions, but people were gravitating towards me. They're like, you are so funny, like so funny. To the point where someone was like, you're even more funny when you're drunk than when you're not drunk. And it's just crazy. Like,
yeah.
And I never decided any of this. I was just drinking, you know what I'm saying? And before that, I was in my church and I was known as Sammy's brother. And that's all I was ever referred to, Sammy's brother, Sammy's brother. I had no really purpose. Exactly. I had no purpose. I had no existence apart from being Sammy's brother. And then suddenly, I think Sammy went to uni and just this whole new life opened. I became a youth leader. I was leading social action events. When Sammy came back, we did a lot of youth action shows together. And then I was I wasn't bad. I wasn't the worst in school, but I didn't listen and I didn't care about authority. I've always had this issue with authority because I don't believe that any man apart from, well, God's not a man, but any person apart from God, should be able to dictate to me what I should be able to do and what I shouldn't be able to do. Mm-hmm. And so in school, I found it annoying when teachers say, well, you have to do this, or you have to do that. Well, if you want a good job. And I was like, well, do you think being a teacher is a good job? And it's not to say that it is or it isn't. I'm just saying that's your perception and that's your prerogative. And I too have the ability to go through life and figure out what is positive to me and what is good and what is bad without you interfering because you think that you know better because your life has somehow told you that. So anyway, I was doing lots of youth work and stuff like that. I was predicted 2 GCSEs. I came out with 7 GCSEs. I got no idea how that happened. My RS exam, I fell asleep in for most of the time. I woke up with an hour to go, and I got the highest result I ever got in any other field of education, that I ever got. I got an A star. I slept through half the exam and woke up in the middle. Now, if that's not purpose, I don't know what is. The stuff doesn't. A lot of the stuff in my life doesn't actually make sense. Another thing is I became a photographer. I love taking pictures. I don't know where it came from. Have no idea. Sammy came to me one day and was like, listen, all these people are thieving all my money. They're extorting me. it's expensive to do photo shoots as a music artist. This was before I even started rapping. And he was paying like £100 for a shoot, £100. He's like, well, let's do the maths. If I go to 5 shoots, I pay £500. If the camera's like £400, why don't I just buy the camera for £400 and save £100?
Yeah.
He's like, are you going to learn how to use it? I was like, well, if you want me to use it, yeah, I'll learn how to use it, no problem. He gave me the camera. 2 years down the line, I was taking photos in, like clubs and raves. I was taking photos for weddings, people's like birthdays. And I've made money consistently off of the camera since the time that Sammy gave it to me. I didn't know nothing about photography. I ran into some random guy who at a show and he was like, oh, nice camera. And he decided to mentor me through being a photographer. Damn. So I do, yeah. This is what I'm saying. It's all by chance. So I do believe that people have purpose. I just believe that not everybody knows what their purpose is. And I think that when you don't know what your purpose is, it doesn't mean that you're not fulfilling your purpose. It just means that you don't know what it is. I believe that God has a divine plan, and that divine plan plays out whether you like it or not. I don't like my people at work. I'd rather be a millionaire. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't like everyone who I come into contact with at work. That would be crazy. If you told me I'll pay you £1 million to sit at home and do nothing, and I could look after my family, why wouldn't I do that? But there's a reason why I'm not a millionaire right now. Mm-hmm. And so, I just believe that everyone does have a purpose.
I was thinking at first that you guys were going to have like similar takes to it. But as soon as you guys are like, no, but this is where we don't agree. Because again, people don't want to hear just one side of things all the time. You got to hear that there's both ways. And then if there is a purpose and you're not aware of it, then your path is going to take you to where you need to, regardless of it. Right. Yeah. Of course, in Sammy's perspective, like you got to put that work in too, I will lean towards more Sammy because unfortunately I have the shittiest luck in life. Not bad. I've been dealt really good hands. I can see that, and I can see the privileges that I have. But at the same time, it's taking me a lot more work to try to get to where I want to be, and I know for a fact I've had to push myself and pave my own way in, so I can see just a little bit more in Sammy's opinion in this case. But again, throughout life, it's just opportunities come up and when to take those opportunities. And that's another thing too. It's like you need to know when the opportunity is there and not just be blind to it.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I kind of wanted to touch base on the nitty gritty of this. And with that whole purpose thing, I wanted to bring up purpose and artificial intelligence and how, in a sense, they kind of go both hand in hand because AI is the ability to follow these philosophical questions throughout its programming because, right, you have to decide what's right, what's wrong, why they think it's right or wrong, make all these fucking decisions in split seconds that normally us as humans, we have time to kind of like really digest them in a different level of emotional and intellectual ways. But do you guys think artificial intelligence, will they have purpose within themselves at some point? Like, are they going to turn on the switch and be like, fuck this, I'm not going to be just a servant or, a slave to the human race to the extent where I'm just there to do their bidding, And you see these companies here in like Boston Dynamics where they're creating these 4-legged robots that can carry so much weight, but they're kicking them around to see how they balance, how they're stable. And then to an extent, you're like, holy shit, it looks kind of like abuse, and but they're, you see why they're doing it. It's to ultimately serve us as a race. Sammy, I wanted to get your input on like the whole, to what extent are we allowing it to like, just go too far? Like, what do you think? Am I crazy here to think we're abusing these things?
I think it's a natural, I feel like it's a natural reaction because it looks like an animal, right? So, because these creations resemble something that you know already, like a dog, right? You don't actually see it like a robot, you see it as a dog. And so when somebody kicks it, it's kind of triggering things in your brain. It's like, oh, hold on a minute. Like, we're not supposed to kick things that look like dogs like that. But it just depends on where you are. And I mean, for me, it's a machine. It's like a microphone or, just because it resembles something, I don't think that it's on par with humanity. It's always a difficult one discussing artificial intelligence, isn't it? Because it's something that's trying to mimic human or animal-like behavior that you're accustomed to. So in a way, it hijacks things that you know and inserts itself there. It's like if you meet this, I don't know, robot that looks like a female, right? That's hijacking bits of your biology and your brain that says this is a female. And so you interact with it like you would a female, but it's not. It's essentially Facebook, you know, wrapped up in something else. It doesn't quite do what human beings do. And I you know, I don't know about the liberation of robots. It seems to be something that some people really look forward to and enjoy. But I don't know. I don't know if how far we are away from that. Obviously, I'm not somebody who works in the artificial intelligence world. And I don't know, but when I've heard things on podcasts and stuff like that, it seems like we're really far away from that kind of iRobot moment where these robots become sentient. And I don't know if we would want that, because every time a dominant species has arisen in the world, they've just decimated the ones that look closest to them, you know. So I don't know, you know.
Yeah,
I think it's quite a difficult.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's again, it challenges your ideas of what the right and wrong is. You know, it's you know, like I mentioned earlier, I saw this. I was playing this video game for people who want to check it out. I could highly recommend it. I'm just saying, it blew my fucking mind. But you know, at the end of the game, it's because it's story driven and it's choice based. So you're making these choices, and it kind of just develops as it goes on. But towards the end, you know, when humans were like, we can't allow this other intelligence to supersede us or start, you know, asking for equal rights or equal, you know, everything. So what did they do? They start destroying them. They send the military out. They send the police out. They start rounding up the house robots and stuff. And they take them to recycling centers that closely resembles fucking like Auschwitz concentration camps. So you're playing as, you're seeing like in the game, in this specific scenario, you're seeing hundreds and hundreds of androids just being walked into these recycling centers where they're just getting shredded up for their parts. And it makes you start thinking like, holy shit, like fuck, is this right or wrong? Am I for the humans? Am I pro-human where we don't want these machines to fucking become fully aware machines? So it was just a really dark moment that kind of had me reflecting about the whole, like, should we allow them to? Should we not allow them to? And, you know, it just challenged my ideas, my morals, per se.
I think that it's kind of like the two gods can't walk in the same heaven type of thing, isn't it? Because you're always going to have a power dynamic between sentient robots, because eventually they will come to the conclusion that human beings are too irrational. And we probably make the world, well, I don't want to say worse, but we don't utilize the world in the way that maybe we should, right? Because human beings, like a lot of people really think that, you know, human beings are a virus, human beings make the world worse. But it's like, the fundamental nature of the earth will kill you if you don't sort yourself out. Right, like you can drown, you can freeze to death if you don't have enough things. It's all good saying, "Oh, well, the cold is outside if you're in a house," but we've had to build houses through ingenuity and stuff like that. It's not just been afforded to us. This is something that forefathers have thought about and were experiencing the luxury of that right now. You know, and if we were just to be at one with nature, which I don't think we can be, I think we'd die a lot more often. You know, and so I think, again, trying to tie it back to the whole robots thing and artificial intelligence, I think it will get to that stage where both people can't really work together. The robots will just be like, they don't use the world as efficiently as they're supposed to. And they have...
Oh, fuck. I think Sammy left us on a cliffhanger, man.
Yeah.
Damn it, Sammy. I was getting excited right now. All right, now, you mind taking over for a little bit?
Yeah, no problem. I mean, I don't think that there would be like some sort of revolution, a bit like Sammy, but I think what there may be is, I think that humans have this... Oh, Sammy's back.
Oh, yeah,
so
Sammy's back. Sorry, Sammy, you kind of left us on a cliffhanger.
Oh, sorry. Which part did I get cut off at?
Jesus, I totally forgot. You just kind of left us on cliffhanger, and I was like, oh, damn it, I want to know more.
Yeah, just to round up what I'm saying, because I'm sure Don wants to get his point in as well. You know, we're, like I said before, there's kind of like two masters. They can't operate in the same sort of field, and so you're always going to have a situation where the two are at loggerheads. And so I'm team human. Mm-hmm. I always, everybody that I know and love is a human being, you know, and if you get me to choose between that and robots, you know, that can't even love properly.
Yeah, we're fucking up robots.
Really, I'm not really gonna go for that, you know. So
okay. What about you, Don?
I mean, all right. So I'll keep it simple. If I had to choose a side, it's never going to be robots. However, I think that what's more likely to happen is that the abuse of robots by, you know, political powers and people who are in power. So I think that technically, even if you did have some sort of robot revolution, it would ultimately be led by a human being. And I think that's just because when it comes down to it, we are kind of the superior race, you know, in that essence. We would have built artificial intelligence. It may have got, you know, really clever, but ultimately it needs a commander, and that commander is more likely to be a human than a robot. And so I think that there is the potential, you know, for this massive AI revolution. It'll just be some crazy person, you know, who kind of wants to manipulate society for their own good and decides to build, you know, a different version of a robot, you know, that does something slightly different. And I think we can see things like that through, I mean, look at Amazon. Amazon, you know, massive competitor, they make different batteries. You know, there's so many different types of batteries. They could just be a provider market. But actually, in order to get the success that they need and the revenue that they need and the popularity, they created Amazon batteries. They sell them for cheaper than you would buy a Duracell or, you know, your Energizer battery. And I think you would basically have that. You would have what we call military AI, which is classified, and nobody else can go near it. And in case of any emergency that is to do with political powers in a war, this AI would be brought out. You would have AI that normal people can buy. I mean, my little brother used to have this. I mean, it's not quite AI, but it was like as we were going into artificial intelligence, you know, there's this little robot that you kind of commanded around and stand at your door, you know, tell you when people walked past it, make some stupid noise and be like, wheel, intruder. Do you know what I'm saying? It was just a little robot. And then like it would walk into you when it bumped into stuff and it'll be like, oh, sorry, you know, turn around and walk the other way. And I think you would just have like upgraded versions of this thing. And I think as time goes on, people would upgrade it more. And the specialized people like the police force, you know, would have access to better versions of that. And the humans kind of would have some retarded version of it.
Yeah, that's what it's really amazing about this right now. Because, you know, people long ass time ago, they'll be guessing what 2020 was going to look like, flying cars, all that stuff, you know. And right now, our conversation is, let's figure out what's going to happen in the future, androids.
Yeah.
I like to think,
and I do think,
go for it.
Are you sure? Because I'd like to hear your views as well.
No, go for it. You guys are my guests.
Okay. I'll just say it quickly. I think the likelihood of us reversing is more likely than artificial intelligence having this massive revolution and having that iRobot moment. I think the likelihood of a world event happening that sets us back thousands and thousands of years is more likely to happen than getting to the zenith of AI discovering who and what it is and I have dreams moments, you know. So
that seems like a bigger chance of happening, you know, a war, World War III or something, or like fucking meteor hits the earth. I'm hoping too, you know, we got Elon Musk working on that fucking Neuralink.
Yeah.
Who knows what that's going to be like in the future, but
crazy.
People are playing with it, you know, and it's just trippy because I'm sure the people developing this stuff and engineering this stuff, they're having these same questions like, hey, at what point are we trying to keep it within that threshold where we're not going to have some crazy fucking Ultron style, taking over?
I mean, I don't think they'll be able to police it to that extent. And the reason why I say that, I mean, you've always got the online black market. Someone's going to find you. You're going to get someone who's a programmer who decides to go rogue, and build these kind of robots that, other people can use. I don't think they will start a war. I don't think they'll go outside and start shooting up people's houses and saying, like robots live forever. But, I do think that there will be, just like you have, I don't know, like motor vehicles, and then people tweak them and suddenly they're supposed to go like 150 cc and now they're like 250 cc. Yeah. The person's going crazy on them. Like, I think you will have stuff like that. We've seen the generation of like jailbreaking phones. So, I've never had such a fun iPhone, until I jailbroke my iPhone. And then I realized that, there's a little thing that you could pay where you would get like internet everywhere. Then we brought out, mobile internet, and people had internet everywhere. So if you bought that, you was probably kind of pissed, because later down the line, you just added it to your contract and you got like 4G. But yeah, I think we will have a generation where people, as you say, people play around with technology, stuff changes. We kind of predicted that we would have, when I was in school, it's like, oh, imagine when we have like videos on phones and you can speak to people. And now we're sitting in a room having a podcast based on like video phones that speak to people. Yeah. So I think that we will always be able to predict the next step. I think as time goes on, we'll have predictable next steps. So like, for example, flying cars, we've already got like hoverboards, we haven't quite got to like a flying Mercedes-Benz yet, but, I reckon it's not too far, from the future. We're already looking at electric, electric cars kind of taken over. And I think in time, you will have that, like some sort of vehicle that is able to go over water, that is able to fly, and also able to hit the road. I think that it's just inevitable. But yeah, again, like Sammy, I don't think we're going to have a Transformers moment and have cars being people and walking around the earth. So yeah, man. But I think it's going to get more strange than people think. But again, like Sammy says, I also think that if it gets too strange, we'll start to regress. So like we look at like things like COVID-19. And everyone was out there living their life. There's no such thing. This is almost like, it's not the same extreme, because there's not such the level of moral panic. But this is almost like the bunkers. During the war, when people used to go underground. There's certain liberties and freedoms that have been taken away from people as a result of this virus that nobody can really crack down on and properly understand. And I think we will have instances where we go so far into time and it's like, oh my days, I never thought this could happen. And then instances where we're like, are we like the stupidest race like ever? Where it's like we're rationing again, not in the same way that we rationed before, but we're not allowed to go to this place, we're not allowed to do this. We might start with flying cars and then later down the line be like, okay, well, you can only fly your car if you're going to, a whole different country. You still have to buy a ticket, as if you was boarding a plane. They'll start to put in measures, and I just think that's how it will go. So, yeah.
Yeah, I want to touch base on real quick. Like you mentioned earlier, like if the revolution was to happen with these artificial intelligence, it will be human-led. And I had a minute to kind of digest that. And yeah, that's definitely a huge part of it, because who else is going to instill what values, because at the end we're just reflecting what we think as our morals and all this stuff onto other things and around us, right? But it's something that's been taught to them to think that that's the way that those are the right things, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You can hijack that program. Like you said, we're really good at tinkering with shit. A lot of the products that we consume are just tweaks on technology before us, and like Sammy mentioned earlier, again, it's like we're just receiving the luxuries that our forefathers made. At this point, we have kind of time to play around and play with ideas and all this stuff, but it wouldn't be possible if anything else before that hadn't happened.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I think that's the thing about technological advancement. So I know Don was talking about, if it happens too quickly. And that is true. But sometimes you don't see it. So it's like some people who haven't seen my daughter since she was born, the person who she is now is a dramatic change from when she was 6 months. Mm-hmm. But to me, the change, because I see her every day, the change is less pronounced. It's only when you look at photographs and you're like, wow, she's changed a lot. And I think that's what happens with technological advancements. Like, you look at what we've seen. We've gone from not having any internet access to being connected to everybody. You know,
bro, we had WAP. That's what it was called, bro. It's called WAP. You know what I'm saying? We went from WAP to the internet.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And that's what I'm saying. But, you know, it's only weird when you sit down and think about maybe nowadays in contrast to your childhood. But it's just like, oh, this innovation has happened and we're part of the society that receives that, you know. But obviously, when, you know, my daughter could be 21 and Neuralink finally comes online, and that won't be strange to the people of her generation. Exactly. Yeah, you know, because they would have been coached by that time. Elon's probably got all of the cars driving with no driver, and every automation doesn't seem as scary. You know, it's like, you ask a lot of people now, would you be in an automatic car and just be comfortable with it driving you to your destination? And a lot of people would have some apprehension about that. But 50 years from now, it's probably what everyone will be doing, you know, talking and, yeah, I'm just in the car, mate. You know, I'll go here, I'll go there. So we'd be a lot more used to it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that point. Like you mentioned, if you're born into it, your likelihood of adapting and accepting this as the new norm is like almost at 100%, you know, compared to like somebody like us that we're like thinking like, nah, I'm team, just as a reference, we're team human, fuck that. But in the future, somebody's like, nah, my partner is this robot, you know, it's like this android is my wife.
I mean, well, to be fair, we're not too far from it now, you know. You have people who identify with dogs, you know. Back in my mum's day, if someone said there was a dog, you go into a mental health institute, you know, whether we like it or not. That's just the reality of what the situation was at the time. You know, previously you had the prohibition in America where, you know, people couldn't drink alcohol. Now, the idea of not having alcohol to some people would just seem absolutely crazy and outrageous. You know, you've got the legalization of weed as well, you know, in a number of states over out in America. You've got the fact that now there's the introduction of CBD over in England as well, like, you know, and to have somebody who drives a car, it's like if I'm smoking in the back of a car or I've got a vape or I'm using CBD, but it still smells to some degree, your taxi driver is probably going to turn around to you and be like, what the hell, man? Do you know what I'm saying? But if you have a car that's driving itself, so, you know, in 20 years' time, we may have cars that are driving themselves and people getting high in the back and nobody knows any different. Why? Because it's their car. There's not a driver. Yeah. You know, like, but then saying that, someone could say, okay, this is a massive risk. We've created, you know, electronic cars that drive themselves. And now we've got people, you know, sniffing cocaine and, you know, getting high in the back. Maybe what we need to do is have some sort of thing within that vehicle that says, okay, you know, one spliff's enough. Don't go and smoke out the whole vehicle, and then you get a warning sign. You know, so we develop over time with technology, and I think we change the way that we think, you know, often as humans. It's like if you spoke to someone again previously about cannabis, they'll be like, oh, you just get high. And then loads of people are like, well, I suffer from insomnia. You know, it helps me go to sleep. Then you had lots of people who like suffered with things like tics. Or, you know, people who had epilepsy, spasms. And then people are like, oh, shit, this marijuana thing might actually solve that problem. Is this a good thing or is it a bad thing? I think because we're constantly reflecting, we're constantly changing. And some of that change is bad. You know, we know that. Some of that change is good, but you have to test it out to figure out whether it's good or bad. And I like, as a human, I like the testing ground. You know, I think it's the most innovative time that we have. You know, when someone comes forward with a new initiative, it's fun. You can do whatever you want with it, you know. And then some fucking idiot. Well, actually, I say fucking idiot, but they're probably, you know, they're not an idiot because, you know, some of them actually specialize in things like safety and it's for our own good. But, you know, someone comes in and puts in some measures and suddenly it's not as fun. You know, you can't test it out the way that you used to test it. So you just have to kind of stick to the rules. And, you know, the country kind of goes along with it.
Yeah, I mean, again, and the bad part, the only downside I see to that is that, of course, if a lot of people start listening or following to certain things that may not make too much sense, you know, it's going to be too late at that point. You know, it's like, again, like the prohibition stuff, when that happened, people weren't, you know, they were still finding ways to smuggle the alcohol, do all this stuff. Like people find a way just to fucking, you know, try to be as independent as possible, you know, to break away from that authority, which was similar here. Like when they first closed here in LA, when they first closed the bars with lockdown last year, I knew a lot of people that were like, what the fuck? They're closing the bars? Like, you know, liquor stores were still open. You know, you can still go to little stores, but the fact that they were taking your alcohol away from you was like, holy shit. You know, people were getting crazy.
So yeah, man, I think times change, but I think we'll see with the robot stuff. I mean, I don't know, man. I think it will be a lot more crazy than people think, but I don't think that it will get as extreme as people watched on TV, if that makes sense.
You know what? Yeah, I tend to ascribe to the Rogan idea, you know, where something comes out and it improves your eyesight by 10,000%. You know, it's technology merged with biology. Hello. You're back, Sam. You kind of were breaking up a bit. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with my internet. I have paid it.
No worries. No, I think the last thing I heard you say was like the Joe Rogan look, like merging biology with like science, you know, like upgrading our human.
Yeah. And so I think that if anything's going to happen first, it will be things like that. You know, Elon himself is saying with Neuralink, the first thing that they want to do is try and cure some of these neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and stuff like that. So this is where the technology is going to start getting introduced to, you know, the human anatomy. And I think that's where we're going to go. And I think it's actually more likely that you have, for all intents and purposes, cyborgs as opposed to sentient, completely robotic, you know.
Oh, you reckon we're all going to turn into jacks?
Yeah, I think that's going to be, I mean, it will be dressed, I mean, I suppose the first couple of hundred of thousands of people will look very bad, right? It's kind of like if you have a look at breast implants from the 90s, innit, like the early 90s, they look terrible. It just looks like two cement things slapped on a chest, you know, and it's like, there you go. But they've refined the art of, you know, mastopexy and all of those things, breast lifts and breast augmentation. They've got the technologies assisted them in getting better in something that looks more natural. And I think that is exactly what's going to happen. You know, you get an eye, your eye's all red and it's doing all of those calculations and that, you know, and then over time it looks more like a human eye and you won't be able to tell the difference, you know, and then before you know it, like everyone can communicate with everyone just by, you know, sitting in their room and logging on through their eyeballs.
Yeah, for real.
Nice.
Damn, man, that'd be crazy as fuck. But I had an acquaintance that I knew. He was a snowboarder, like a professional snowboarder, and he had a horrible accident, man. So he broke his like part of his spine. So he's paraplegic. But I've been following him on Facebook, and over the last couple of months, you know, he was going through physical therapy and all this stuff. And I guess he finally made the decision to just have his legs amputated. And he got these new fucking high-tech robotic legs, dude. They have calves, like toes, like they move and shit.
Wow.
And to me, it's just crazy because, again, it's like what Sammy's saying. It's like we've been integrating certain parts of technology into our anatomy, but we're seeing that advancement as it progresses. Pirates back then used to have fucking pegs. There's a reason they have pegs, you know? Nowadays you have these fucking full-formed, full-looking leg that once you get used to it and your body just adapts to it, I'm sure he's gonna be running laps like nothing.
Yeah, that's true, man.
I mean, look at Apple Watches. You know, the advance of an Apple Watch is absolutely crazy. Like, I remember when I first saw an Apple Watch, I was like, "What the fuck is anybody gonna do with this?" Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a digital watch. Like what the fuck? And then I got one. I was like, wait a minute, I can control like anything that I'm playing music on that basically has Bluetooth. I can control through my watch. I can change the volume. I can switch a song. I now got my AirPods in, as you can see. And I'm like, shit, like life is really changing. Mm-hmm. So like when you used to watch MTV Cribs and like people used to be like, oh yeah, change the temperature to, and we used to be like, oh shit. Oh my fucking God. Yeah. Now all this stuff is like easily accessible. We didn't used to have like facial care. You used to go to a spa. If you didn't go to a spa, there ain't no facial cleansing, no hot steam faces. You know, like Amazon has really made it possible for people to have these kind of things, you know, in real life, in your home, like so conveniently. And I think Sammy's right. We're going to start like integrating stuff into biology, but we're also going to start integrating things into our home. They just make living life so much easier, you know. And I think, you know, in time, you know, we'll end up like the Matrix, you know, our homes will just be like this hub, you know, where we're most comfortable in and we can do things so easily, you know. I remember the first time we watched Minority Report and the guy was just flinging stuff around the screens and like Tom Cruise was just like bringing stuff forward and stuff. And I think, you know, that's a real reality with our touch screens now. And all it takes is for people, I think they're putting like screens now on like LCD plexi as well. You know, so I think we've really got an exciting age, you know, ahead of us. And, you know, what we'll be able to do with it will be absolutely insane.
Nah, it's going to get crazy. So, I mean, I'm glad we still got another like 30, 40, maybe 50 human years left. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
You know,
that's
that time frame.
No, definitely.
Now, and I always want to bring up the whole like the Apple Watch thing. It's funny because I was opposed to it at first too. Eventually, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna treat myself. I wear watches anyway. Let's go digital. I got it, dude. And like you said, like it just you didn't see it then, you know, but now you have it. You're seeing how it integrates with your daily routine. Like when I work out, it's timing me, telling me how many calories I'm burning, like my heart rate and all this stuff. So it just made a thing that I wasn't really aware of better, and now I can see the you know its purpose. And again, like AirPods, like that shit made things. I'm here like selling Mac products and stuff. No, but like I'm fully integrated in that Apple ecosystem, you know. And
same.
And how many other people? And before they know it, they're like, oh, you got an Apple arm. You can do whatever you want with it. Dude, how many people are going to be open to that, you know? Especially if once you realize how much it improves things in your life. Thank you guys for making this all work out.
No problem.
Before we start wrapping this up, I mean, is there anything that you guys want to last things to say? Like any last words?
In terms of the last words, it's kind of just like, well, you know, if there is like a human versus, you know, Android revolution or AI revolution, make sure you stick to the human side, man. Don't be a bitch and be like disloyal to the people. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't be disloyal to the people. Like, don't bite the hand that fed you. You know what I'm saying? Like, we all out here just trying to make a living, and then you switch and go onto the AI side.
Robot
like,
overlords.
Yeah, we'll fuck you up, man. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Dang.
But no. In truth, it's been amazing. Thank you for the experience, like, and especially like talking about things that we don't really like usually like talk about. Because it's been real interesting for me to like, even as we're having a conversation, I'm like spinning on the chair thinking, oh shit, like how much things do I have in my home? Like I got a Bose speaker that has like Alexa inbuilt, you know, and hopefully one day like I'll set up my home, you know, for that, so I can just say like turn on the lights, like do this, do that, and you know it'll be absolutely crazy. So it's the more you think about it, the more you kind of realize what kind of a generation that we're going into. So yeah.
What about you, Sammy? What about your last words here? Like, if the AIs are looking at you right now, they already heard Don. They're gonna come after Don. He's on the shit list right now.
Yeah, I'm the same, man. You know, fuck these robots, innit?
Yeah, man.
Oh fuck!
Oh, yeah, we lost him again.
Oh my day. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back. You're back. AI is testing you. They're like, Fuck this guy, man. What are you talking about?
Let's fuck his connection up.
Really been interesting to kind of get it in the brain and sort of figure out what you think about situations like that. So thank you very much.
Yeah, well, I mean, thank you guys again for taking the time to make this happen. And I hope it's again not the last time we do this. Hopefully, in the future we have another conversation to see where things stand. And we'll see from there, man. Thank you guys.
All right, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you as well, Eddie, man. Take care of yourself.
Oh, last thing, if people want to find your podcast, what is the best way to find you guys?
The website is www.thefamilypodcast.co.uk. And that's got everything on there. It's got our Buy Me a Coffee link. It's got all of our episodes and everything that we do. So just head over there. And we put out episodes every Sunday. And we do IG lives as well. So if you want to connect via Instagram, it's at The Family Podcast. Nice and easy. So hopefully we get to see a few American people, joining the family.
Yeah, pull up.
Well, again, thank you guys again so much for making the time. It was a great conversation, and I hope it's not the last.
No worries.
Me too, man.
All right, guys. You guys enjoy the rest of your day.
You too, man. Take care of yourself.
I step into the daylight for the first time in a while. It's been a year full of doubts and fears, but I think I'm ready to get out of here. Into the light, the daylight. I'll meet you there, the other side.
Pero no les digas cuando así me dijiste a mí, por eso vivo penando. Negrita de mis pesares. ¡Ay, Dios mío!
Watch the sky disappear at night while the clouds roll into sight. A gentle blue that reminds me of you, of when we were both so happy inside. Into the light, the daylight. I'll meet you there, the other side. Step into